feeling conflicted on this one. Darkman, directed by Sam Rami and released in 1990. Production budget of $16 million with a domestic take of $33 million, a foreign take of $15 million for a worldwide total of $48 million, giving them a profit of $32 million, doubling the budget cost. Starring Liam Neeson, Frances McDermott, Larry Drake, and Colin Friles. I found myself conflicted watching this movie, flopping between it's really bad and it's actually really good. Let's explore that. Characters. Well, the characters in this movie are strong characters. They're quite plain characters, admittedly, but each one is distinct and strong and, well, quite enjoyable. They have a presence on screen that is undeniable and easily distinguishable. A young Liam Neeson running around as the titular doctor and Darkman. He does really quite well, actually. He really digs into the character. Whenever he's all bandaged up and being menacing, that's his gig. He's really good at that. When it's just Liam Neeson, he's still good, but funnily enough, not as good as when he's Darkman. Occasionally feels a little flat, occasionally feels a little shallow. At the same time, he'll then dip into this madness, the deteriorating psyche of Darkman. He's the good guy, but you wouldn't trust him. Like, you wouldn't trust him to keep it together if needed. You just want to keep your distance, and that'd be fine, thank you. Frances McDermott as the girlfriend, potentially fiance of the good doctor. She's good. She's not great. Does her job quite well. She doesn't show a great range of emotion, but what she does suitably. I'm trying to avoid the word bland, but she is kind of one note, which, you know, for the role and for the sort of script she was given, that's kind of what you'd expect. I hate to say it, but once again, the female lead's the weakest link in this particular movie. It's a shame. It really is quite the shame. But she still does quite well for what it is and for what she's got to work with. Coffee, coffee, coffee. Now for the villains of the movie. Now, one is your classic comic book movie villain. And he really is very villainous, quite sadistic, quite sinister and menacing. He's a real threat. And he comes across as quite urbane and civilized. He's also remarkably brutal. And that is a hallmark of these movies of the time. All across the 90s, any villain in these things are really ramped up to be super villainous. And this guy's pretty nasty. He's a mean piece of work, and I liked him for it. And now this guy, the billionaire Strank. Or Strank, I think it is. Totally not Stark Industries. Strank Industries. I liked him because he was charming and slimy at the same time. You sort of knew that he had to be involved somehow. He was a bad guy. He had to be a bad guy. But they never really connected all the pieces till the end. You knew it was coming. You're not surprised by the twist. But it was still an interesting little twist anyway. Oh, it was coming. Oh, yeah, there we go. That's what I expected. There's a payoff. Good to see. Quick note about Darkman's power set. It's kind of funny. You've gone and given super strength and pain invulnerability to just a doctor. A guy who's got no interest in fighting. No training in fighting, no real ability at fighting. He takes wild swings and wild chances. He really has no skill in combat other than brute strength. His main strength, his main weapon is his intellect and his ability or this knack for impersonation. And that's about it. Then you've got all the interesting mooks and henchmen that slowly get taken out throughout the movie, as per wrote in this sort of film. And you know what? They were flavoursome, they were a bit of fun, they were true characters in their own right, just here for a short time. So overall for characters, look, the characters that engaged you really did engage you. The ones that were just kind of background and bland didn't really matter because they weren't actually bad, they just weren't spectacular. So I'm going to go ahead and give characters a 3.25 in this, because they were fairly standard, but the Darkman and the main villain really did lift it just that little bit more. So, story. Look, there's nothing new to be found here. This is your classic superhero origin story based around vengeance and violence. It's a little bit The Shadow, little bit Batman, little bit Punisher. You know, it's that sort of thing. It's an amalgamation of other good ideas. And in that respect, it serves its purpose quite well. It's just not terribly deep. Okay, it's quite shallow. The story premise in itself is very, very simple. Doesn't mean it's bad. It just doesn't mean it's very new. You've seen it about 10,000 times before. It's just, once again, the packaging this story comes in that makes it interesting. And it is actually quite interesting. Once again, it's how it all comes together that's the important part in all this. And watching Darkman dish out some vigilante justice on a bunch of bad guys is kind of cool. And then the sub story with him trying not to lose his humanity and succumb to the darkness and the kind of rising insanity and rage in him, that's also quite interesting. And him trying to maintain his relationship or rebuild the relationship with a girlfriend slash fiance, also quite interesting. And finally, the main villain's quest for real estate, also kind of cool. Now, all these elements, as I've just described them to you, you've seen in everything. You've seen it in Lethal Weapon, you've seen it in Die Hard, you've seen it in Batman, you've seen it in The Shadow, you've seen it in Netflix's Daredevil series. You've seen this before a lot and often. But it's just a different take. Do all the story elements work? Yeah, kinda. Individually, they're pretty solid. Together? Mostly. It's yet another movie where if you rip out the romantic subplot and just made it a vengeance thriller, it would have probably worked a lot better. You could have replaced the romantic subplot with him just failing to function in society properly. You know, just falling apart socially. You could have shown him like that sort of thing. So yeah, the romantic subplot was not necessary in any way, other than to give him a weakness, unfortunately. To give the main villain someone to kidnap, to force him into a showdown. That's all it really gave them. It's a very, very overused trope, that one. Luckily, however, the romantic subplot is interspersed throughout the rest of the movie, so you tolerate the romantic stuff just to get back to the vengeance story, just to get back to him running around, wrecking this organization by impersonating different people and killing them off, and just making bad blood between allies. That was very clever. Is the lead up to the finale really worth all the effort? Not really, to be honest. The finale was very third act, and not in the best way. Although I have to admit, sometimes this is the really good sort of dumb. You got some interesting insights into the different characters, you got a bit of exposition. They really hammed up the story and made it work, mostly. But the good news is, for most of this movie, the story keeps you interested. You want to see how it all plays out. I will be going ahead and giving the story a 3, because whilst it wasn't spectacular or innovative or anything like that, however, it was a well done retelling of a frequently retold story. It kept you engaged despite you knowing it off by heart, so well done. Look and feel. Now here's the bit where I'm conflicted. On one hand, it'll be well shot, well lit, well directed, well choreographed. You know, the scenes are great, the settings are good, the shadows and the lighting are spectacular, the use of sound, the use of background sorts of stuff, all that knits in perfectly. The character of Darkman looks great. The makeup and the bandages and the layers on his outfit. The layers they put on his clothing. Almost representing the layers of himself. So well done. It's really visually beautiful looking at times. Beautiful in its grotesque nature, in fact. Then on the other hand, you've got some pretty lame special effects, some very obvious green screen, you have some very obvious overlays and fake fire effects here and there, and just general shenanigans. You've got people taking a shot with a grenade launcher and then an explosion on a highway, which sounds fine, except it's very clearly 2 different shots from widely different angles, because from where the guy was shooting, the grenade couldn't have possibly landed where it was, you know what I mean? That sort of thing where you're watching it going, yeah, that makes sense, that doesn't make sense, that can't have happened. Just things like that just throw you out of the movie, pull you out, going, that doesn't work, that doesn't work, that doesn't work, that doesn't work, that's stupid, there's no way you could do this, no way, blah, 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 blah. Then in between those two, you've got some really good practical effects. Pretty cool explosions, nice chase sequences, use of the helicopters, all that sort of thing in the middle there. You've got that sliver in the middle where the movie's split into 3. Really working, mostly working, not really working. It's also one of those movies where a whole army of gangsters can't shoot 6 guys standing in a group in the open. Like, plot armor plus. And then you got the 4th category in that area. You got the 4th bit, the far right hand side of the not so good section. Whenever the doctor starts to lose it, when the adrenaline rush hits, when there's a spike in rage. Now, sometimes it's over here. It's really good. Other times, usually it's just like, yeah, right. Okay, it's overlays, it's dramatic. Yeah, right. Can we skip, please? Thank you. And then sometimes, in particular, when he loses it in the pink elephant scene. Yeah, there's a scene. It's the pink elephant scene. And he loses it, and the whole thing goes extremely comic booky. and it's far end of the spectrum. It's jarringly terrible. And I get the feeling that this movie in a lot of ways is a victim of its time, budget, and technical ability. So as far as someone trying to do what they can with what they've got, pretty darn good. And with $16 million budget, very good. Seeing what they could do with 16 million versus what Hudson Hawk couldn't do with 65 blows my mind. Now this is a big cult following, this movie, and I can see why. I actually kind of enjoyed this. But at the same time, just some of that old school wackiness that comes in is a little bit, just that bridge too far in some respects there. So I'm thinking I'm going to give look and feel in this one, despite the negatives I've listed, and they are jarringly negative at times, I'm going to go and give look and feel a 3.5. Because when they get this right, it's so right. And the really weird stuff, it isn't there long enough to really ruin the movie. Here's where, as you probably know by now, I have some major issues fairly often. Bad dialogue will derail a whole scene and stick in your brain as you're having to suffer through it. And Darkman is no different. When it's good, much like look and feel, it's really good. When it's bad, oh dear me. Oh dearie dearie me, it's flat out terrible. There's a couple of scenes where you can actually see the actors remembering their lines and delivering, and then pausing, remembering, delivering. Doesn't happen often enough, but it jumps out when it does. Sometimes it's underacted, sometimes it's overacted. And just some of the scenes are, I don't know what, they tried to be funny. They tried to drop some humor into a situation that's completely out of place, completely unnecessary, stops momentum almost dead, and you're wondering, why did you do that? Why bother with that line? Scrap that, do something else. And then you find yourself thinking about that line when the movie's moved on and you're missing things because you're still trying to process why they did what they just did. When you got Darkman running off sobbing, like boo-hoo-hoo, almost boo-hoo-hoo sound effects, you're like, what is that? Liam Neeson run sobbing. It's just weird. It just sounds weird. It's very clearly dubbed over and it's just a very odd thing to put in there. It's kind of bizarre. Where Darkman's talking to himself, trying to psych himself up, reminding himself that he is actually just a scientist. Don't lose your mind. Focus on the here and now. That wasn't so bad, a little cheesy, but still pretty good. Kept within the character, and the character was losing it. And the husky growl that Neeson adopts once his character's taken the throat damage from the acid, that's pretty cool. He keeps that for the rest of the movie. Apart from a couple of scenes where he's back just talking normal, which is, again, a little jarring, but, not that bad. It sounds like I'm rubbishing the script a lot here, and I kind of am, I suppose. It wasn't entirely bad, please don't get me wrong, but just the bad bits really kind of stand out. That's what a poorly delivered, poor script will do. It will stand out in your mind and distract you from the otherwise awesomeness that is happening in front of you. So, look, I'm going to have to give script and dialogue a 3. Now, you're probably expecting lower. I was too. But the good bits are good. Just all the other throwaway lines and pointless dialogue and mumbly type stuff you just don't care about, or it doesn't make an impact, or it doesn't even advance the plot. It's just filler noise. That really drags us back down. But it still does what it has to do. It still delivers everything you need. It just really could have trimmed back on some of the rubbish. But I'll be leaving it as a 3 because it doesn't make you mad. It just kind of lets you down every now and then. Fun factor, did I have fun? Well, yeah, actually I did. I enjoyed it. I wanted to see what happened next. I wanted to see where this movie was going. I was also enjoying watching all the different actors whose character was being played by Darkman impersonate themselves. Watching the actor who played the main villain pretending to be Darkman, pretending to be the villain, what was nifty. That was interesting to see their take on it. I kind of stepped out of the movie experience just to enjoy their version of themselves being someone else. Or someone else being themselves. It's confusing, alright? It's a confusing thing to try and verbalize. But I hope you get the idea. I was never bored. I was never thinking about something else. I was never wondering when it's going to end. I never checked the time once. That's good, So, fun factor, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and give fun factor a 3. It entertained me, kept me engaged, and I wanted to see how it ended. So yeah, well done. 3. Final score time. Well, you add all these together, you get a 15.75. Honestly, I didn't have a bad time. I pretty much enjoyed myself. Am I going to watch it again? No, probably not. Not voluntarily. Might watch it with friends. Would I recommend it? Yeah, you know what? I would, as a precursor to all that is to come. I'd watch it as that. I would just remind people that it's an early 90s action movie. It has pointlessly bad language and needless levels of gore and, over the top violence every now and then. It's a typical early 90s action film. As I said before, I can see why this is a cult classic. It really is both entertainingly silly and quite dark. So there we go, there's my review of Darkman. Have you seen this movie? What did you guys think of it? Did you enjoy it? Or are you with me, where it's kind of like, yeah, it's fun but a bit dumb? Whatever you think, please let us know both in the comments section or the Facebook page. Hope you're having a great week and that you make some time to go and watch a movie.